For today's day of Zen, we are allowing ourselves to be nourished by the theme of today's celebration, that is Pesach, or Passover in the Jewish tradition, which also in a very deep way is resonant with the Christian celebration of Holy Week, which happens to follow this coming week in this year's calendar. On some years, they are merged into the same weekend, and in some other weeks, they are a week apart or so around. But in any case, setting aside linear time, let us put ourselves into that remembrance of Pesach or Passover, and also put ourselves into the spirit of the Holy Week. I am dedicating this talk to our Mariacanon Zen Sangha, but also I would like to also let you know that this talk is also being offered to the Zendo Manila, the Philippine Sangha, that it's sitting at a Holy Week session a few days from now, so that it will be a way of celebrating our being in communion together across the oceans, different geographical locations, and yet one in the breath, one in our common connection with one another and our common connection with the universe, and one in our connection with the holy. So Pesach or Passover is the liberation from slavery in Egypt towards a life of freedom. And we won't go into the detail into that, but that, and Holy Week is the liberation from death and passage from death to the newness of life in the resurrection. And so there are so many themes that we can take up that will enable us to find a gateway to our Zen practice, to what this practice of sitting in stillness with a posture conducive to that stillness, breathing with awareness, and allowing our mind and heart to come home to the here and now can offer for us. And each word that we can use can offer precisely a gateway to that which is the core message of our Zen practice. And I will take some of these words today and offer some ways for us to really enter into that stillness and relish what it means, so that we can see ourselves with transformed eyes and see the world with transformed eyes and live in this world with a newness of life. So, first, the word holy. That itself is a hint for us to allow ourselves to immerse ourselves into it and realize that with every breath, we are immersing ourselves into the Holy of Holies. Now, in our Zen tradition, there is a story about an emperor in China, the Emperor Wu, who is said to have been reigning in the empire when this monk Bodhidharma came from India, or the western parts, they would call it. And when the emperor heard that there was this very holy man who came to his land and was just meditating in a cave, he called him into audience and asked him, "Sir, you bring something new to our country here. Please tell us, what is the core message that you bring to us? We heard about the message of the Buddha, and so what is the core message of the Buddha that you come here to bring to us?" And it is also the same message that all of us who have followed in this practice of Zen are invited to taste and see and embody in our own lives. And Bodhidharma's answer was, in two short phrases: vast emptiness, no holiness. And that immediately took the emperor by surprise. How can that be? I have been devoting much of my life and many of my resources precisely in supporting your new religion here in our country, providing money for temples, offering support for monasteries, precisely because I believe that you have come to bring us something that is holy that we don't have yet. And so I would like to support you. And now you tell me, no holiness. What's that? So the Bodhidharma has a way of thwarting the conceptual ideas of his listeners. And here it's the emperor who was expecting some holy teaching from Bodhidharma. And yet what Bodhidharma tells him is no holiness. And that is one gateway for us to really enter into that which Zen is all about. What is that? No holiness. Let me offer some words and concepts that may hopefully be a way of embodying that. In short, the word holy comes from a background where there is a set of events or a set of artifacts or a set of places that are considered holy or sacred, set apart from others. So in the major religious traditions of the world, but also in in so many of the religions that we can investigate, there is this category called the holy. A German thinker named Rudolf Otto wrote a whole book that became very influential in religious studies called The Idea of the Holy, wherein he notes what is considered holy in many cultures of humanity. And he notes that there are certain things that are set apart from the ordinary. They are precisely extraordinary and they are precisely special, not like the other things that we experience in our day-to-day life, getting up, washing our face, and so on, taking our meals, which are what we consider ordinary. But there are certain events where we put ourselves in a situation where we set those apart from other ordinary things, and that's what is considered holy. In that context and in that background, we may be able to get a hint from what Bodhidharma is telling us and telling the emperor when he says that the core message of Zen is no holiness. I would like to offer some pointers in delving into that. No holiness. In short, take it in this very simple conceptual way. Bodhidharma is precisely breaking the separation between what is holy and what is not holy, and inviting us to that realm where there is nothing to cling to, there is nothing that we uphold as if it were something separate from us, and invites us to enter into that place where it is just that. No holiness whatsoever. Now, that does not mean that we can now simply desecrate everything and say things that are blasphemous and so on. But it is precisely an invitation to see and feel and touch and taste each and every element of our life, with every breath, with every gesture, with every sight, sound, taste, feel, and so on, as precisely immersed in that which is beyond the distinction between holy and not holy. It is simply just that. And what can be holier than that when all the concepts of holiness have been blown away, and it is simply the awe and wonder of just this, standing up, sitting down, and even doing the so-called ordinary things. There is one koan in our Sambo Zen tradition that is given to those who have had a glimpse of this realm that Zen is talking about, that goes like this. A dog is pissing in front of a Buddhist shrine. Or they put it in the reverse way. In in front of a Buddhist shrine, a dog is pissing toward heaven. What a crass image, you might think. And that's what the koan is about, to enable us to see something that we may consider as very profane or unholy and so on. A dog pissing toward heaven in front of a Buddhist shrine. Isn't that a desecration, you might say? But that is precisely the point of the koan. The Buddhist shrine is considered that which is holy, and now here's a dog pissing toward the heaven. By the way, in Doksan, if the gender of the teacher and the student are different, we don't do this koan. So some of you may not have done this koan if your teacher is of a different gender, but for those with different, because it might lead to embarrassing situations. But in any case, a dog is pissing toward heaven. How can that be something that expresses the heart of Zen? If I may offer a hint from an inside view, the very ordinary things we do, even like washing our face, going to the toilet, or doing things that we would consider menial or ordinary or not sacred at all, are precisely a locus, a place where we can find that most holy of holies. In short, it's breaking down all of the conventions, breaking down all of the separations, and allowing us to acknowledge that which springs forth from every moment of our lives, that which springs forth, which gives us awe and a sense of reverence and a sense of wonderment, even in those ordinary things. And that's the challenge that Zen offers to us. It is said to be iconoclastic. It breaks down our idols of ourselves and of separations between holy and not holy. So let's just take that as the first hint in entering into this holy time of the year. That, of course, we celebrate it in a special way because there were certain events that happened in the past that we would like to commemorate and remember. That's another word, by the way, that I'd like to take as our gateway into practice, to remember, to bring to our members this very body that I am, that is breathing in and breathing out and throbbing with life, with my blood running through my arteries and veins and so on. This throbbing life that I am, that I share with all that partakes of this life throughout the universe, is called to re-embody and reenact and realize that which that word is pointing to. And so in that context, then, it is a way of living in this very moment that which these words are pointing to. And so the holy then is the first gateway. What does it mean to live in the midst of the holy, where there is no separation between holy and not holy anymore? That's the first hint, so that it is not just this week that we are celebrating, it is not just this day that we are celebrating, but once we are able to enter into that realm where we have now remembered and we now are incorporating that into this very body, it lives on with us in a fresh way each and every moment throughout our lives. That sense of holiness. Now, in the Christian celebration of Holy Week, it is inaugurated, the celebrations, the commemorations, the remembrances are inaugurated by a meal that Jesus invited his disciples to partake with him. And this, of course, is the Seder meal that the Jewish tradition, the Jewish families take, wherein they commemorate, they remember those events of liberation from slavery towards freedom, a life of freedom. And so this is the direct takeoff of the Christian Eucharistic meal, the Seder meal that commemorates and remembers that liberation. So what is involved there? I will not go into all of the theological ramifications, but just focus on one phrase from that meal that Jesus partook of, inviting his disciples and inviting everyone who was to follow his cue throughout history. When he took bread and he offered it to his disciples, he broke the bread and said, "This is my body given for you. This is my body given for you." In the Christian tradition, that is understood as words of consecration, the acknowledgement of the sacred, the holy, the special, the most awesome, the most wonderful thing that can ever happen, namely the source of the universe, the divine, who is also the one who sent Jesus to take on our flesh and to be one among us, takes on this bread and says, "This is my body given for you." So these are the very words of the source of everything in the universe itself, saying, "This is my body given for you." That is what Christians take in their faith tradition, that it is the human Jesus saying this, but the human Jesus is actually the embodiment of the divine in our midst. And his saying that is precisely the saying of a divine blessing on, "This is my body given for you." Now, what is that body referring to? You might think, oh, well, yes, in your Sunday school, yes, it's that bread that is being offered there. Fine. That bread that is offered is what? Made up of grain that came from the wheat, and it was nurtured in the fields through sun and rain and through the little critters that were in the soil then that helped in nourishing it. And it was taken by the farmers and harvested and then brought by the truckers to the warehouse. And then from the warehouse, they were brought to the bakers so that they could be made into bread. And then the bread was packed and then taken to the grocery stores. And then the grocery clerks and so on were the ones who checked it out so that you could bring it home and so on, and bring it to your home so that you can celebrate it and eat it with your family and so on. So in short, that bread that is being lifted up here as the center of attention in this ritual consists of everything you can imagine in the universe. That bread is not just a separate entity that you have taken and made it separate so that this will become a special commemoration of that event, but that bread represents precisely every particle of everything that exists in the universe. In looking at its composition, there is nothing that is separate from that bread. Thich Nhat Hanh, in his wonderful way, points to precisely that interconnectedness of each and everything that makes up this universe, the interbeing of each and everything. He takes a rose, for example, and sees how that rose, in those moments, in a few days when it is shining and blooming, is comprised of all of the dirt and all of the garbage that came from the world, that became the source of nourishment, that got into the roots of that rose plant, that got into the rose and so on. And so this gives us a glimpse of the fact that each and everything in this universe is consisted of, or is made up of, everything else in the universe. So that bread, in short, which is being proclaimed, "This is my body given for you," is precisely what this universe is all about, in this very concrete bread that is before us. And so those who are part of that ritual are invited then to come and partake of that bread. So we go up and receive a piece of that bread and take it into our very bodies, and allow that bread, which is now seen as the representation of everything in the universe that is now proclaimed from the source of that universe. This is my body given for you. And when we ingest it into our body, those very words now take on a new angle when we say, this is my body given for you. What body are we talking about? Whose body are we talking about? And in what way is this body now going to be offered, given for you? We know that in the Christian context, right after Jesus had this supper, they went out to the garden, and there he was arrested by Roman authorities. He was tried, he was condemned to death on Good Friday, and then he was put to death on the cross, and then Holy Saturday and Easter Sunday. I will not go into that for now, but just to know that this is a series of events that precisely emphasize at each juncture that special holy realization that this is my body given for you, is opening up the gateways to all the nourishment that we can ever want or need in this life. When we say, this is my body given for you, and we take that bread and we allow it to merge into our own body as it is digested, and it is now part of this very body. What are we now talking about? This is my body given for you. A hint is given to us in Hakuin's Song of Zazen, when we chant how Zazen can really eliminate all harmful karma, and one sit in Zazen can really clear out all obstructions and enable us to realize nirvana right here and now. This very body, the body of Buddha. What does that mean? That is an invitation for us to sit today, and if I may, to offer it as an ongoing theme for our sit. As we sit there, breathing in and breathing out in stillness, and allowing that stillness to reign in our hearts for this particular day. And if I may invite you to continue this as you go along through the week, and perhaps even throughout your life. Let this be a mantra that you can take that will allow you to enter into that holy of holies, into that realm of Zen. This is my body given for you. And as we remember that, and as we allow that to sink in when we go to our day-to-day lives, when we meet people, when we see the wounded world that is that causes so much pain to all of us. Just today, reading about Burma, more protesters were killed. Reading about Yemen, reading about so many places in the world where there's so much suffering. Every day is Good Friday. And again, that is another irony that we need to look at. What is good about it? That's another gateway into the Zen life. And as we see that, the words resonate. This is my body given for you. In what way are we now called to actually live in this very body and offer it as a gift to the world so that it may help in the healing of the world in some way? This is my body given for you. That for me is a very, very powerful way of living the Zen life. If each and every one of us can live our own lives in a way that is no longer centered on what I can get or what my enlightenment can be or my peace of mind and so on, but allowing the reality of who I am as interconnected with everything in the universe to be truly activated in each breath and each standing up, sitting down, relating with people, looking at the world, then the world will be a totally different place if each and every one of us can take on this hint, this gateway, saying, "This is my body given for you." And we can see ourselves as gifts to one another. And we can see each and everything in this world precisely as, "This is my body given for you." So it is an exchange of gifts, a sharing of the life that we all live. And there will be no longer anyone who is alone, no longer anyone who is separate from the body, but we are all one body. And this is my body given for you. These may not be coherent words in a systematic lecture, but these are offered as pointers here and there that hopefully might open up something as you sit there in the stillness and allow yourself to realize you are not alone, you are not separate, but this is my body given for you. That's all for now.
Boundless compassion. Absorbing ourselves awaken this Buddha, source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. The pure heart always rejoices in the light we call it, in the dark we call it, moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this, absorbing yourselves awakens the Buddha. This Buddha, source of compassion, this Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices in the light we call it, in the dark we call it, moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this, absorbing yourselves awakens the Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices in the light we call it, in the dark we call it, moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this.